Karen Lange. I'm the curator and director of the Campbell Historical Museum and the Ainsley House here in Campbell. There's two aspects to the museum. There's the Campbell Historical Museum and then there's the Ainsley House. The Campbell Historical Museum started off in the 30s with the Country Women's Club starting to gather objects and decide that this was a worthwhile project. At first, the museum was located in their library, and the Historical Museum shifted from place to place, at one time being in the new library, at one time being in the basement of City Hall. And then in the 80s, the old firehouse, which is the first public building owned by the city of Campbell, it was at one time the firehouse, the police station, and City Hall. That became available in the 1980s. And that's where the Historical Museum decided to have the Historical Museum there, and that's where we've been ever since. Then in 1989, the granddaughters of J.C. Ainsley decided to donate this house to the city of Campbell, because even though the property where it's located is eBay Park and it's part of San Jose, at the time when the house was built, it was considered Campbell, and they wanted it to go back to Campbell. So in 1990, the house was moved to this location, and now the historical, we run both museums. Where eBay sits is now San Jose, but it was considered Campbell when J.C. Ainsley built his house there in 1925. So in 1989, when they donated the house, it had been incorporated by San Jose. They wanted it to go back to Campbell because J.C. Ainsley, he had several houses here in Campbell. His cannery was here in Campbell. He considered himself a Campbellite. I told you that eBay Park was considered Campbell, and the Ainsley's daughter, Dorothy Ainsley Lloyd, her house is still there on Hamilton Avenue in eBay Park. It doesn't look anything like this grand house. It's more of a Queen Anne farmhouse, and I think it's used as business offices. Yeah, so Campbell was basically the early settlers, like in 1852 is really when Campbell started with Benjamin Campbell and his wife, but and that was grains. Then orchards became more popular, and the canneries really started in the 1890s, and there was cannery workers, and the big three canneries were the Ainsley Cannery, the Hyde Cannery, and the Payne Cannery. But really, by the 1930s and 40s, those three canneries were not really in existence anymore. So, and then everything became orchards and fruit drying. And Campbell had started actually some cooperatives, the California Association of Prunes and Apricots, which later became Sunsweet. And that's, all these farmers came together to sell their fruit and market it together. Very successhyou at that, and then they used to dry their fruit, and like I said, Campbell had the largest fruit dehydrator in the world at one time. So as for the population, it was a lot of Eastern European immigrants were here. It was just that kind of in the 30s and 40s, the fruit drying came more, and then in the 1980s, I think, is when the last orchard was gone, and Silicon Valley kind of took over. J.C. Ainsley was an Englishman that came to the United States in the 1880s, and he experimented with canning fruit. And in 1898, he had his first canned fruit product, and he decided to go into business with his brother, who still lived in England, and shipped it out, and it was just a wonderful success. It's the reason why we don't hear about the Ainsley label as we do other labels, because 99% of his product was shipped to England. His cannery was right over here across the street from the Ainsley House, and the Ainsley House was actually their retirement home. They had 3 other homes before this, all in Campbell, but in 1925 they decided to build their dream home, the Ainsleys, and they They built this house, and in kind of the Anne Hathaway's cottage style, like English Tudor revival, with the faux thatched roof, kind of reminiscent of of England. Since this was built in 1925, it has a lot of, like I said, English Tudor revival elements, which is the faux thatched roof, the wood paneling, everything like that. But then it also has a lot of arts and crafts elements, which was a very important element in 1925. So it has hand-hewn beams, it has like the copper hood that is hand-hewn, a lot of handcrafted elements that make the arts and crafts movement. Okay, here's some pictures of J.C. Ainsley and his wife Alcinda, and their grand tour of Europe obviously included Egypt in front of the Sphinx. I love this picture, her sitting side saddle on the camel. And then here they are at the Acropolis in Greece. Mrs. Ainsley was a modern woman, and she was always the one to drive them on trips. She liked to drive, and Mr. Ainsley was the passenger.